Text messages reveal that law enforcement had flagged the would-be Trump assassin as suspicious at least 90 minutes before he shot the former president. But for some strange reason, they did not approach him. Matt Peterson, we've got Steve Baker here. Give us a preview of what's up on the site right now about this incredibly hot story.
You want to go to the site now because you want to see a new article we just put up. Assassination attempt, not a coincidence. Donald Trump Jr. says. Some breaking news today that we broke, and many thanks to our friends at the Tucker Carlson Network for working with us on this and spotting this. And we will talk about this in a minute, but it's a conversation that occurred between Don Jr. and Tucker Carlson at a private event in Nashville during the Bitcoin conference. But before that, there was some amazing news from Senator Ron Johnson that really just boggles the mind. Steve?
Well, it boggles the mind, but it also confirms some of the earliest reporting that we've done here at Blaze Media. We were very fortunate to have sources on the ground on the evening of July 13th, as well as the next morning before the Secret Service gag order went into effect, which basically told all of their operatives on the ground, all of their agents, to not even speak to their wives, not to speak to other agents that weren't there. But what we were learning, and the most important thing that, and really the single most significant thing of all, was that the radio comms were what they were called siloed. And this is something that should have been dealt with, and we thought had been dealt with in so many other disastrous intelligence failures. We're talking about whether it's January 6th, we're talking about 9/11, but the bottom line is that these agencies were not in communication with each other because they were not prepped. They were not they did not have their all boots on the ground morning meeting to put together the day's operations. Who's going to be where? Which sniper team is going to be on this route? And this was part of the problem that happened, was they did not only not know where each individual special forces, or rather counter assault team or counter sniper team would be, but when things started going wrong and then suspicions began being raised about this particular guy, Thomas Crooks, on the ground, and then a sniper team from the Pennsylvania State Police got him in their scope, they couldn't get communications back to verify that he was not a blue-on-blue situation, that he was not a friendly. And so it was during those moments of deconfliction, because they did not have Secret Service was not in communication with Pennsylvania State Police. They were not in communication with the other county law enforcement agencies there or local. And as a result of that, that allowed the first shot to be fired by Thomas Crooks.
So just to underscore the severity of what's going on here, the reason why they couldn't talk to each other, the reason why these things were siloed, those messages had to go up the chain, right? To some kind of central clearinghouse. You know, you almost think of like the old school, like telephone operators plugging the thing. Who was collecting those messages, and then whose responsibility was it to get it back down to Secret Service?
Well, that's what the senators are trying to find out right now in these hearings, because what should have happened is that the individual command centers, we know that Secret Service had a command center. We know that one of the local law enforcement agencies, county, had a command center. And what they're supposed to do, basically, it's probably not the proper way or the technical way to put it, but they should have cross-pollinated each other's command center. If they're not on a common or universal channel on the same radio frequency, then they have to have somebody from each agency in each command center with each group communicating so that they can hear what's going on and as close to real time as possible. So when we see these snipers behind President Trump on the roof, they're behind the stage, and they seem to obviously have this individual scoped 130, 150 yards away, whatever it was, they couldn't pull the trigger because they had been told earlier in the morning that there would be a friendly counter sniper team on that exact roof. So when they saw a shooter with a rifle, they didn't know what to do.
I just want to emphasize something here. I mean, the idea that the Secret Service receives a photo of the shooter taken by a counter sniper at 5:14 p.m. This is in this article. And despite he's spotted by law enforcement, right? They get the photo. I think it only goes to the command center at 5:55 p.m., 16 minutes before Crooks fires the shot. And then what really was shocking is that the Secret Service, according to what we know, only acquired the assassin in their sights after that first shot was fired. Is that correct?
That's correct. The actual Secret Service sniper, who was actually a team specialist, was 4.5 football fields away. He had to swing. We are told this directly by our sources on the ground. We knew this. We actually knew this on the evening of the 13th. Blaze Media did. But we know that he had to swing his rifle around in response to the gunfire that he was hearing, had to acquire the target. It took him quite a bit of time. That's why essentially he was the last shot. And he executed the shot that, Trump called the 1 in a million from much, much further away than what everybody thought.
Yeah, really an astonishing exhibition of raw competence in an environment that seems to, any way you slice it, there's definitely incompetence going on there. But is there more? I mean, we've asked this question before. We're going to keep asking it till we get some answers, right?
Well, one of the things that everyone should know is that there was unbelievable incompetency that day. Layers upon layers upon layers of incompetencies and professional failure by the Secret Service. The most competent of all of those groups that are there from their various divisions are the people on the counter assault teams and the counter sniper teams. That's a completely different, animal, as we would say. And that's why once he was able to acquire the target, even though he didn't have it in his earpiece, once he was able to acquire, he was able to make that successful shot.
All right, let's take a listen to some of that audio we've got here. This audio clip from Donald Trump Jr. and speaking to Tucker Carlson. Let's take a listen.
I don't honestly think that the guys at the Secret Service, many of who I know and respect, magically left an entire roof unguarded where a guy with a rifle could get there for 20 minutes within 150 yards. Like that doesn't happen, right? That's not being a conspiracy theorist. You're a freaking idiot if you think that just happened by coincidence.
Speaking for probably, I think at this point, quite a large number of Americans, first time that a member of the Trump team, I think, especially the Trump family, has come out and said this kind of thing. Do you think we're going to hear more of this kind of rhetoric, more of these kinds of questions being raised from the family and the campaign itself?
I have a very, very difficult time even going where we're about to go with this discussion. I'm the guy at Blaze Media who spends half of his time dismantling the conspiracy theories, whether we're talking about January 6th or we're talking about J13 now. It's dismantling the idea of 4 different shooters. Yes, there were 4 different shooters, as a matter of fact, but 3 of them were law enforcement. How about that? The problem with allowing yourself to go down the conspiratorial path, as we know, as a news organization, is we open ourselves up to incredible, criticism and the diminishment of our own quality of news. But we do have an incredible amount of sources from agencies, or we should say special operatives that have worked in let's just say the darker side of our government's operations overseas, be they CIA special agents, special operatives from our armed forces, that are reporting to us that as they see this and see more information come out about Thomas Crooks, more of the details, more of the path of his day, that they're beginning to see what they are familiar with by our own operatives overseas of grooming a disaffected young man and setting them on the course to activate at a certain opportunity. Now, this is very hard and very difficult to say, but there's a lot of things that they're seeing. I mean, first of all, we know from the release by the Oversight Project at the Heritage Foundation that Crooks was actually doing a recon on the site on July 4th and on July 8th. We also know that he knew to turn his phone off on July 12th. We also know that he had grooming, or he had some sort of special knowledge about how to put the drone up, not for surveying the site. What he was looking for is he was looking for his path to the place where he was designated to be that day. Because obviously what he saw on the 4th and the 8th was going to change on the 13th, because all of the cars, the vendor trucks and food trucks and things of that nature. So he was actually looking at his path to the building. And these are the way we're talking to guys that have been on these types of operations, who have done this type of grooming of other these types of disaffected individuals overseas, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's in Egypt or other parts of the world, for color revolution operations, for kill capture operations, and for precision bombings. Because sometimes we don't want our hands on it. And look, I don't have to tell I don't think I have to tell anybody that Americans have been doing this for a long time, and we have special elite forces that are very good at this. Do we want to believe that this happened here on our soil? No, we don't. Do we want to believe that this happened with President Trump and specifically? No, we don't. But we have to look at the possibility, especially since the president's own son opened up that can of worms.
Let me say something here. I mean, so again, this article is assassination attempt, not a coincidence, Donald Trump Jr. says at theblaze.com. In the article, we cite Michael Waller, Joe, and Joe Hanneman cites Michael Waller, who was on our show not long ago, and he said this on the show, and I think it bears repeating. He said, because we need to be careful here, right? It's really hard to separate incompetence from willful negligence or even simple negligence or malice. But that means it's a two-edged sword. You can't rule out malice. You can't rule out someone wanted this to happen, right? When you have this level of incompetence. So I don't like to be told that we can't ask the question. That's ridiculous. Everyone is asking the question, whether it's the president's family, right, or it's millions of Americans who are trying to wrap their head around how this sort of thing happens. So in the article, and what Steve is saying is, you're saying that there are people out there who say, this guy bears the signs of someone who was groomed to do this. A normal 20-year-old would not have a drone and be scoping it out. A normal 20-year-old would not go there 2 times before and turn off his phone and take various steps. And so their interpretation is coming from the fact pattern of the activity of this shooter. Is that right?
I'm saying, and I'm telling you, that I'm getting reports from individuals who are recognizing their own handiwork. For our own government in overseas operations, ostensibly doing the work of God and country. But are there other forces that think, because look, Trump is, he may be the most loved man by half of this country, but he's also the most despised and hated figure by half of this country. And we can't dismiss the possibility that there are other people on the other side that think that they're doing the work of God and country to take him out. And we have to explore that, which is one of the reasons why we're such big advocates for some of these groups that want to provide private security for the president, especially and at least up until the election, while he legally can, by law. He can supplement Secret Service security. He can replace them if he wants. But we think that it's important. I don't think for a second that Secret Service themselves were particularly or specifically involved in the setup of this. If it did happen, it would have come from other agencies. It would have come from other darker money, and it
could have come from other governments.
It could have come from other governments as well. And again, we should emphasize, we don't know that this happened. We're not saying that it did. We're saying that while we're looking at incompetencies, we have individuals coming directly to us and saying, I've worked in government in special operations for 30 years. I've seen incompetency. I've seen incompetency upon incompetency, and this goes beyond incompetency.